But as I said this morning, if you're tuning in and wondering what I'm doing here when we were going to have a bit of a break, it's because we had some news on Martin Corey, and of course over the weekend we've had some news on Marion Price. Now, Marion Price is a woman who's being held without trial, without any reason, in a Belfast hospital at the moment, surrounded by armed guards. She's been declared unfit for trial. Various magistrates, High Court judges, European courts, United Nations courts have all ordered her release. But the Secretary of State for the north of Ireland, in the occupied territories there, decided that she isn't going to be released. We're not in any way condoning what Mrs. Price has done in her past, but she's now a free woman, or she should be. But the Secretary of State for the occupied territories has decided that she is to be held under armed guard in a hospital. Over the past few days she's developed pneumonia, and, well, things aren't looking great. And yet, still, the Secretary of State will not release her. This fly-by-night politician, who is unelected in the north of Ireland, somehow has powers to override the various courts of this country. Now, I don't know how you feel, ladies and gentlemen, but as far as I understand, the courts are above politicians. But it seems not. And you've got people like Marion Price being held without trial and against all common judgment. It's a similar thing to Martin Corey. Now, Martin Corey served his sentence and did 19 years in prison. And he was released in June of 1992 without signing anything. He set up a little business and got himself back into society. Then, without warning, on April 16th, 2010, he was taken back into custody. No reason was given to Martin at the time or since his return to jail. When solicitors and brave people like Simon Pook up there, who is a human rights lawyer and prison law specialist, started asking questions, and others did as well, they were told that it was secret evidence. Doesn't this worry you a little bit? Well, it worries me, ladies and gentlemen. It really, really does. Secret evidence. He was being held under secret evidence. This means that in court there is no reason for the prosecutors to reveal why they are holding Mr. Corey. Again, I will state, we are not glorifying or condoning anything Mr. Corey has done in his past. He served his sentence for that. He was given life imprisonment back in the 70s, and he served that. He served a full 19 years. But now he should be a free man. He isn't a drug addict, he isn't an idiot, he isn't some waster. As soon as he got out of prison, he set up a business, and has been working hard on that business. But as I said, he's been held without trial, without reason, without even evidence put in front of his defence lawyers. We had Jim's good friend on the phone. We had Martin's good friend on the phone, Jim Mawry, and I'm hoping to get him back on the phone a bit later this morning, in about another 15 minutes. And we're going to have a chat to find out what's happening with Martin, because there's some developments in that case. Now, as promised, I've got Jim McElroy on the phone. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Tony. You well?
I'm very well, sir. And how are you?
Great. Everything's going great, thanks.
Brilliant. Now, I understand that Mr. Corey has had some news over the weekend.
Well, our legal team has now made a direct petition to the Supreme Court in London. We were initially denied this in July, just after the refusal to release Martin. On the 11th of July, the Lord Chief Justice denied our appeal to the Supreme Court. We would really like to take Martin's case to Europe to highlight it, but as you're probably aware, you have to exhaust every avenue within your own jurisdiction before you can take it further. So we have now submitted the paperwork, and the case hopefully will be heard in the Supreme Court in London.
So when is that likely to be heard?
No date has been given in regard to that. Now, we have two dates coming up. Martin has an annual parole hearing which takes place by the parole board in each year annually, which is August. We haven't got a date for that, but we surmise that it probably will be around the 10th or the 12th of August. So hopefully now we will, I have, through the solicitor, I have made an application to speak on Martin's behalf at the appeal hearing.
So, of course, I've already mentioned that Mr. Corey is being held without knowing why he's being held. Am I right in saying that?
To basically recap it quite quickly there for those who are unaware of the Martin's case, and if your listeners who are unaware of it, Martin Corey was sentenced to life in prison in 1973 for his part in the double murder of two RUC officers in the Lurgan area. Martin served 19 years in prison for that offence.
So he's paid for his crime then, really?
Well, 19 years of your life, is... There's a lot of people we have seen, released in 10 years or 12 years or whatever, but 19 years, I feel, most people would feel that, it's a price to pay.
As would I.
Martin was released in 1992. Now, that would have been 6 years prior to the sign of the Good Friday Agreement, so he didn't get out under any early release scheme. So he got out in 1992. He began to rebuild his life. He became the parish gravedigger. Martin worked hard and established himself in the profession, and he, I say, has the respect of the whole community. In April 2010, Martin's life licence was revoked without warning.
Without warning?
Nothing. He just got a call at the door, 7:30 one morning, and two men brought him to Lurgan Police Station. The officers who brought him in didn't even know why they had taken him. So seemingly there, the Secretary of State had revoked Martin's life licence, stating that he was a danger to the public. So
what had Martin done to deserve...
He did nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing? Absolutely nothing. And one might say that anybody who would support or engulf themselves in such situations would say that, but I am not a member of any political party.
No.
I'm a personal friend of Martin, a lifelong friend of Martin. I have faith in Martin, and up until this I had faith in the judiciary. Martin has nothing placed against him. If anything had been found in Martin's house which was untoward, if Martin had something in the vehicle which he shouldn't have had, I don't think we would be having this conversation. Martin would be doing his time.
Yeah.
Martin has done nothing wrong. If they're stating that Martin is, as they stated, a danger to the public, well, would the public not have the right to know what level that threat would be? We're meant to be living in a democracy where everyone has the right to justice. Now, by the sound of it, this Mr. Corey has been arrested without knowing why. This sounds more like a third world dictatorship than the north of Ireland. Exactly. The thing about it is, this is a man who's approaching pension age. Do you know what I mean? What threat he poses, let us all know what it is. Personally, Martin's continued detention is an affront to the justice system. It's the equivalent to internment.
What it is, yeah.
The fact that the Secretary of State can actually overrule the judiciary, it must have far-reaching ramifications.
That is scary because the Secretary of State is just an elected politician, and they change their jobs like people change their clothes. So, next year this politician could be the Secretary of Health or something.
I've written to this guy, and the letters I received back is, that we consider him to pose a threat to society. That's fine. If he poses a threat to society, let us all in on the secret. If he has done something, I've been in Martin's company. I was with him 2 nights before he was taken in, and his conversation that night was around fishing. Martin's interest in life was fishing. And
I drew a bit of fishing myself.
Well, that's what our conversation was that night, and I'm not here to waste anyone's time or to tell lies on.
No.
The bottom line is, if Martin had been involved in any untoward activity, I wouldn't be standing making a fool of myself by you. Martin has done nothing.
And if he had, I mean, if they turn around and said, this is what he's done, and if he has broken the law, he deserves quite rightly to be in prison. But we need to know what that evidence is.
He has remained in prison now for 2 years and 5 months. Do you know what I mean? And the longer that Martin remains in prison, the greater the web of deceit becomes woven around him. And Martin can't offer any defence. Do you mean if you or I were apprehended in doing something, you have the right to a defence? Martin's nothing.
No, he hasn't. I mean, how can you defend something you don't know what to defend?
Yeah. Marion and Martin, in my opinion, my humble opinion, are the victims of concocted stories woven in someone's mind. As I said before, do you mean, let us see the threat that they pose. And now, do you mean, the position is, as we stand at the moment, as I said, we have a parole hearing sometime in August. I have made a direct application through my solicitor to go and speak in person on Martin's behalf. I hope that they will avail of that. We also have the trial, which took place in April and May of this year, which was the judicial review of the decision to detain him from August of 2011. That has to be reheard again on the 20th of September.
20th.
So as it stands at the moment, the update in Martin's case is we have now made a direct petition to the Supreme Court. We are awaiting a date for the parole hearing of August, and we have received the date of the 20th of September for the rehearing of his judicial review of August 2011, which was a legal detention.
So hopefully we've got 2 upcoming chances for Mr. Corey to be able to defend himself against what he can. And hopefully he will get the release that he is due in these 2 dates, on one of these 2 dates.
Well, part about that is, it gives them more time to maybe leak out a little more of this closed information that they have. I mean, we keep hearing about closed files. I mean, closed material. I mean, closed material to me amounts to nothing more than a rumour.
Well, it doesn't. To me, it's almost an excuse to hold somebody. Maybe there is, and maybe they are justified, but we don't know that until they release it. I mean, if this was going on in Indonesia or some other dictatorship country, there would be hell up. It would be on the front page of every newspaper.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. We're hearing criticism on a daily basis of undemocratic nations exercising unlawful incarceration of civilians by the British government. Even the other day, Mr. Putin, was it to call him, the guy from Russia? Do you mean Putin? He was over, and the media said that Mr. Cameron wanted to talk to him about human rights legislation and Human Rights Act in his country. Do you mean, normally what I do is, I brush my own floor before I brush the outside street.
Yep. Well, I think that's pot and kettle almost up there, isn't it, with those two? Yeah. And it does. I mean, my elderly father died a couple of years ago. He served in the Second World War. And he said he fought for the right of people to have the freedom of choice and the freedom of speech. And he himself knew he was disgusted with some of the things that he had heard from the north of Ireland. And he said, is this what my friends have died for?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, if Mr. Corey has done something wrong, he gets what he deserves. But if he hasn't, he deserves to have his freedom. And I think we deserve the right as anybody to know why he's done this. And I just can't understand why they cannot release this closed evidence. I mean, what is it that they cannot say in court that is holding someone back from their right of freedom?
I've questioned that. I mean, and all you get is, it could have ramifications. It could. The barrister for the Northern Ireland office at one point said that if we disclose some of the information, it may jeopardise someone. Do you mean, is that a tongue-in-cheek? Is that,
that sounds almost like an excuse.
Or something. There's nothing materialistic that you or I could turn around and say, right, put him in front of a judge, let the judge decide on this. We've got none of that.
Yeah.
We've lobbied the Northern Ireland Justice Minister, David Ford, over Martin's case, but clearly he's not in control here, nor is the judiciary. People in the north of Ireland were promised a new beginning here in the late 90s, and there'd be a new state of openness and transparency. It hasn't reached Lurgan and County Armagh as yet, so it must be on its way.
Well, it seems to be getting worse. I mean, we're dealing with cases the likes of Marion Price as well. People being held without judicial review and judicial without the right of law. And
Marion's case has actually got to a point where her health is a major issue, and under any government of any country, everyone feels for someone in pain, in anxiety. Marion is unwell, and they're still detaining. Her detention is now more than a human rights issue. It's a health issue.
I was reading about it, and people get released for far less. And I think again, it's another example of British law being misused and being used almost as a bludgeon against anyone who speaks out against them, or even anyone who's involved in anything these days.
I'm sure, as well as ourselves, you see plenty of footage and media coverage on Guantanamo and the illegal detention of people there. It's going on here. It's going on within the jurisdiction of the British government. It's going on in the north of Ireland, and I am convinced that there is a media blackout, and it's an agreed media blackout that this coverage isn't given.
Well, yeah, that's true.
None of the national press is covering it.
I know. I've been looking up. I spent last night going through the press to get updates, and I can't find anything. I mean, I can find plenty of information on celebrities having breast enhancements, but I can't find anything on Martin Corey. Although I do notice that the Irish News seems to speak out a little bit.
Yeah. There's one journalist there, Alison Morrison, seems to be covering the case quite well. And whereas the Irish News would have an excellent coverage, in regard to the circulation of the area, but we would like it to go national. Now, the national papers all have been contacted. There is a group, the Release Martin Corey campaign, has contacted all of the major newspapers in the Republic of Ireland and England, but as yet there's no coverage coming through.
Well, I think, as we've seen ourselves, we've seen Rupert Murdoch shaking hands with government ministers, so I think we know who's in control there.
I think that handshake was a greater statement than a lot of people realise.
Well, that's why we, on this show, on the One and All show, we feel that we need to speak out. We haven't got the coverage of some of these newspapers, but we have got a good worldwide voice, and we do know a number of our listeners are tuning in. Now, Mr. McElbury, could you tell us how people who are tuning could help to support Mr. Corey?
First and foremost, I would like to express Martin's gratitude in your interest in the case and that of your listeners. I was down visiting Martin, and he is absolutely delighted that you're giving him coverage. How your listeners could help would be basically to write to their MP and basically ask them to state a reason why Marion Price and Martin are being held without a charge placed against them. If there is a charge, place them in front of a judge.
Yeah.
If the judge finds them guilty, let them do their time. If they're not, release them. When the most senior human rights judge in the north of Ireland ordered Martin's immediate release, saying there was no justification for him being held.
Well, there isn't. Mike's got training in law, and he had to read through it, and he said there's no reason why Mr. Corey should still be held. If a senior judge in the north of Ireland orders his release, he should be released. I was at
every court hearing in regard to Martin's case, Tony, and I mean, some of the things that they put up, was laughable. That he had rubbed shoulders or met people who were considered to be, dissident Republicans. What is a dissident Republican? Is this someone who doesn't agree with what the British government are telling them what to do or whatever? I don't know I'm not political, but the judge actually asked, did any of these people have convictions for so-called dissident Republican activity? And the barrister said no. So the judge asked why should they be mentioned then, but he says we feel that they are. So, as I said, it's corner whispers and everything else. But Martin's family are holding up well through it. But have to understand, I mean, they've had a really bad year. Martin's brother was probably the closest person in Martin's life. I mean, the two of them are basically like twins. I mean, they did everything together, and he died after a short illness in May, and the family really are still...
They really must be suffering.
They're suffering, and they do not need this. I mean,
they certainly don't.
Yeah,
when are you seeing Mr. Corey again next?
But on Friday, seeing him.
Well, you give him our best from the One and All show, and give him the best from our listeners, and maybe one day in the very near future we'll meet up and I'll buy him a pint of something for him.
Well, he said that when he gets out, what he would like to do is talk to you directly on the...
we would love that.
And we will certainly get that. But if your listeners, Tony, can write to their MPs or ask the question, why is a person being held, incarcerated in a prison without any charge placed against them? Because, believe you me, I mean, people think this could not be them, but it could be.
It could be.
It could easily.
I mean, I was rubbing shoulders with an ex-prisoner last week, a man who had committed a crime and served his sentence. I was rubbing shoulders with Republicans over the weekend, so I mean, I could, in theory, I should, in theory, be looking over my shoulder.
Really, even the fact though that you've put your head above the parapet and highlighted Mary and Martin's case, I mean, is another reason. I mean,
I know I'm being monitored. It's I've got ways and means, and I know we're being monitored, and it's wrong, because all on this show we are neutral. I mean, we keep saying the same thing time and time again. If the people we're speaking about deserve what they've got, they should get it. Yeah. And we try to give both sides of the argument, but the problem is we can't get hold of anybody on the just side of the justice who want to speak to us.
You should actually make a representation to contact someone from the Northern Ireland office, I mean, to come in there and give justification for it. But the one thing also that I'd like to point out is just on a point what you said there a moment ago, is intimidation of people, do you know what I mean, that's interested in a case like this. Do you know what I mean? To be stopped, searched, to be hounded, to have your computer or your phone tapped into, all because you want to see human rights for a person. I mean, it's what type of state are we living in? It's like pre-1977 Iron Curtain stuff, so it is.
It is, and I mean, I'm fairly certain that this conversation is now being recorded by more than this radio station. So, good morning, Mr. MI5. So,
don't take that as a suspicion. Take that as fact, because I said, I mean, I'm totally paranoid, Tony, and I think paranoia is healthy. It is,
and it's quite terrifying that in what we consider a free country, first world nation that has fought against tyranny, that someone like me, who has never been charged with anything in his life, can have people in suits sitting at desks, presumably in the back of transit vans, following me.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, you could be considered in some corners as a troublemaker. Or
well, I'm that okay. I'm that okay, Mr. Sir.
I mean, that's Jim, by the way. But I'm saying, you're just because you put your head up, do you know what I mean, and speak out for someone's rights. I mean, the government seems to think that, I mean, you're a stir or a columnist or whatever they wish to label you. But, I mean, I don't have any axe to grind with anyone. I mean, I'm not a member of a political group or party. I'm a friend of Martin. Martin had asked me to help his family and assist them in any way I could. I've done that, and I'll continue to do it. And I don't care what actions or what they place against me. I mean, I will see Martin out, and I have faith in him, and I would like to see that the judicial system in the north of Ireland comes through and wins on the day, and that the country will go forward for the next generation to be run by law and order, not by government ministers. That's
taking the words right out of my mouth, sir, and I think that's a good point to finish on for this morning. If you can keep us updated with Mr. Corey's cases, and the minute he's able to, let us know, and we'll get him live on the radio.
Yeah, look forward to that one.
Right, thank you very much, sir, and Tony, I shall speak to you again very soon.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you now. Goodbye.
Bye.
All right. Bye. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, from almost from the horse's mouth itself. That was Jim Mawry speaking about Martin Corey. Now, as Jim says, he hasn't got any axe to grind. All he wants to see is justice served in the north of Ireland. Right, this morning we were speaking about Mr. Corey, and we spoke to his friend, Jim Mawry, and during that we've had Martin's niece come in. So, good morning, Elaine.
Hello, morning.
Hello, and how are you this morning?
Not too bad, thanks.
Now, you're obviously tuning into our show there, and to have a member of Martin's family in, it'd be interesting to know the sort of what he's been going through, the other poor bloke.
Well, Martin was never really... Martin knew that there were problems when he was getting home. He knew that it was just going too smoothly. Even when he was told he was then released, he says that he was going through each department, and he thought it was that quick. That he says, it just kept clicking in his head. He says, I'm going to be turned back. And then we got the phone call to say that he was getting released. About 2:30, maybe a wee bit before it, everybody got in the cars, went down, sat outside the jail, kept ringing in and told that he was getting out this time, that there was paperwork, he had to go through different departments, but it says that Martin then was sitting right at the front desk. So we were all getting excited and all and couldn't wait just to have him home. And next thing was, after 4 o'clock, solicitor rang Martin's friend Jim to say that he wasn't getting home and that there was a hold put on him.
This is a form of psychological torture. This is a form of psychological torture, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, all the family want to know, if Martin has done something right, we'll take him to court, get it sorted out, then at least everybody knows where to stand with him. But nobody knows absolutely nothing.
And no one's being told anything?
Not a thing. And I mean, our family are absolutely devastated. I mean, we get my mother, every day he rings my mother at a certain time, because that's the only way he can find out what's happening with the outside world. I mean, and he seems to be holding up, but I'm sure it's hard, because even when his brother Peter died, I mean, all he could ring was every day, and all he kept worrying about was not himself, but about us, about how we were getting on. And he kept telling us, keep your head up, I'm all right here. But even the day of the funeral and stuff, like, he was treated like a pure animal. Like, we didn't even know, and we were on the main road to the chapel carrying his brother, and he didn't even know still if he was getting home or not.
That's not right. I mean, and we must say again that he has not been charged with anything here, yet he was being treated like an animal on the day of his brother's funeral. This is disgusting.
Yeah, and I know how bad it even got. We were waiting on the phone call from Jim to say, do you know if he was getting home or not? And we were right up, and we kept walking slow. The priest told us that he would keep the chapel open till whatever time we need till we got Martin home. And like, we were walking along with the hearse, and we didn't even know if Martin was getting home. My family were absolutely devastated. See, even that morning, when the priest had to go and tell Martin that he was that what happened, because all the family was in my mother's house, and we were all sitting waiting for the phone call. I never witnessed anything as bad in my life. The cries of everybody on that phone.
It must have been awful.
I mean, it still haunts me. To know, even my mother's brothers, who are tough men, sitting crying like children, because they were so devastated that they couldn't be with Martin.
And again, he hasn't been charged with anything. And this is what, I mean, I could understand if he'd been charged, that's the rule of law, but he has not been charged, and he's not even being told what he's been charged for, is he?
No, but see, this is the point. Do you know, it's saying too, everybody is in jail, they know the reason why they're in jail. They do the time and then leave. Martin's sitting there over 2 years for something he doesn't even know what he's done. If Martin knew, or if he was put to trial and convicted of something, you could look over it.
Yeah. Well,
but this poor man hasn't been charged with absolutely nothing. Everything's top secret. You can't find out absolutely nothing. I was in court the next day after the release, and they wouldn't put a block on it. I went to court in Belfast myself to see what was happening, and I actually thought that I was going to be bringing Martin home.
And again, this is not so much being held without trial. This is almost kidnapping. I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, this is against his human rights.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know, like, and you can see, do you know, he looks like such an old. Yes, he is over 60, but I mean, you can see in his eyes, do you know, that even that day we were getting him released, there was going to be no party, nothing. Our family had decided they were all going to take him to the graveyard to be with the brother, to grieve, because none of the family has grieved yet, because they're still in for Martin. Do they want everybody home as a family so they can all grieve together? Like, there was going to be no show, no nothing. They wanted nothing. All they wanted to do was to take Martin straight to the graveyard. That was it.
And that's just not. Again, that is just another affront to human rights. I mean, again, if Martin hasn't been charged with anything, so what right have they got to deny him a chance to grieve over his own brother's death? I mean, this is awful. I mean, this is another nail in the coffin of justice, of the justice system.
Do you know, it's even frustrating for a family. Do you know, people, yes, Martin's going through it too, but see the family are going through it just as much.
Well, yes, I mean, this is what people seem to, don't always, it doesn't always make the news, does it? I mean, they see the person themselves being trouble. Of course, you're here, you are his niece, and you're speaking now from your mother, presumably his sister?
Yes.
Yeah. And you're saying, you're suffering because of something that Martin hasn't done.
Do you know that his brother isn't well? He died. He's another brother, Sean. He wasn't well. My own mother is not well in poor health. Do you know, and that's why he constantly rings every day to know and to let them know that he is okay for them. You know, to keep their spirits up. You know, and like, he's going through it as it is. I can see their health going down because it's taking a toll on the family.
Yes, and again, it's disgusting. I mean, I am disgusted to think that people like you and Mr. Corey are being put through this. And God willing, when he is released, I mean, he should be claiming a lot of recompense for this sort of suffering. I
went to a march, a peaceful march, to get Martin's case heard, to let people know what is happening. Because sometimes, see, the tabloid, they don't want to know.
No, they don't.
See, and this is why I come on to your show, was because you were good enough to highlight Martin's case, and I says I'll come on here to speak to let people know what the family and what Martin is actually going through. But the papers don't want to know. I mean, it's all right, they can. Katie Price, she's all right, long as she's front page, but the real people in the world are getting nothing. Even Marion Price, nobody is getting heard. And that's why people are going out on the streets. I went out on the street myself to protest. I got arrested and got a £300 fine for walking the street to protest for my uncle.
Sorry, you were protesting and you were arrested and fined?
I got £300. I actually was £500 and they dropped it to £300.
Well, that was kind
I got a £300 fine for walking the street to protest my uncle's innocence.
Under what charge did they do that?
It's because you're illegal protesting, because it wasn't a legal march. It didn't go through the Parades Commission, so they charged me, and there's 15 others charged, and some of them got higher fines than that.
That is, sorry, again, I mean, the north of Ireland, for good or bad, is actually part of the United Kingdom, and as far as I understand, the protesting is lawful.
Well, there was 15. We were all supposed to have been seen on. Each one of us was tucked into a room and showed footage of us at a march. And next thing, the judge pleaded us all guilty, and we all had to get fines. I haven't still paid my fine because I don't think I should really, because I didn't think I was doing anything.
Well, I can't. Obviously, I wasn't there, but I can see what you were doing wrong. You were protesting, a peaceful protest, as you say. You were walking down the street, highlighting an injustice, and they carry out another injustice, which just seems to compound the problem.
Yep. I mean, you cannot highlight anything, or you're arrested for it. You're made out to be a troublemaker. But how are you a troublemaker? If we don't do the protest and we don't put the placards out, who else is going to do it? Are we just going to let them sit and rot away and just let this go? You can't do it to one person.
I think that's what they want to do. They're hoping that people forget, and you won't read anything about this in the national press. This is why the One and All show. I mean, I said I go through the press, I keep my eye open, I read all the papers, not just the right-wing ones, I read most of them, and if you're lucky, in some of the more fairer papers, you might get a little mention of something, but that's it. I mean, it'll be lost on some back page somewhere.
And you know, like, we're getting wee bits here and wee bits here, you know, in paper, the Argyle local paper, but they're always putting the wrong highlights on. You know, they're not saying injustice for Martin Corey. They're putting what he's done in the past up. I
saw that on one paper, and I mean, he was mentioned as convicted terrorist, has been rearrested, and I thought, that is a distortion of the truth. He has served his time. Now, as far as I understand the law of this country, is that once you serve the time, you've paid your price, and then you are now a free man.
Even that time that when he came out for that couple of hours for his brother's funeral, I mean, they put it up convicted murder. I mean, like, how can you do that to somebody? That person wants to come out to pay respects to their brother, and putting headlines like that up, like it's just not right.
It's not fair. I mean, a lot of the press these days seems to be owned by one man, that Mr. Murdoch.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's shaking hands with government ministers, I think, shows where this country's going. And when we speak to people like you and Jim and others there, and it's news that you don't hear anywhere, and it terrifies me to think that one of our listeners, me, anyone in the studio, could be in Mr. Corey's place in any time soon.
Yeah.
And this is not what United Kingdom is meant to stand for.
But you know, even sometimes you talk to people and they see your site and see what's happening with Rafe Martin Corey campaign, but sometimes they say, well, he must have done something for deserve to be in. And they say, well, you must know, or he's just not telling the people.
No.
I wish that we did know, because then at least we could content ourselves, or we could just settle, you know. But every day, morning and night, is wonder how Martin's getting on, or wonder if something new will come in tomorrow, or you know, Martin is the topic of everybody's subject every day, family.
And again, if we knew what he was charged with, he would have half a chance to fight it. And as we've said, if he is charged with something that he is guilty of, he should be punished. But we need to know what he is guilty of, and to withhold this evidence contravenes every possible law there is.
Like, I read up about that Judge Justice Tracy, and like, he is a good high judge. Like, it wasn't like just a couple of days. He took I think it was something like 7 weeks to take that verdict on Martin, and then they overruled his decision. There has to be something just not right.
It is not right at all, and we will keep pressing Mr. Corey's cause, and hopefully he's got a parole hearing coming up in a few days, and another hearing in September. Yes. And all I can say is I hope that in a week's time or so we would be speaking to him live.
Oh, I wish.
So do I.
That would be a goal, really would be.
Right. Well, thank you very much for ringing in, and you really have made my day. The fact that you're listening in and the family listening in. Give my best to the family.
Thanks very much.
You are in our thoughts and in the thoughts of our thousands of listeners all over this country and all over the world who tune in.
It's just it's just really to let the listeners know what, you know. Yes, Martin's going through it too, and it's absolutely terrible going from having a life to no life. Also what's happening with the family. You know, all we want is my uncle home, my mummy's brother home, you know, and Linda's partner home. You know, like, he has a partner. You know, it's just terrible, absolutely terrible. So let listeners know what's happening over here in Northern Ireland. It's absolutely terrible.
It is. Now, if you speak to him, you give him our best.
Will do, yeah.
And tell him that as soon as he can get out against this unjust detention, this containment, this internment, that he can come on the show and we will have a good chat with him. And you give us best to the family, and I will hopefully speak again to you very soon.
No problem. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye, mate.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is from the family perspective. There you go. I mean, we publicised Mr. Corey's case, but we don't want to forget that he's a married man. He's got nieces, he's got sisters, he's got brothers. He's got people who spend their days panicking, worrying about how their brother, their uncle, their husband is coping. Now, this isn't a man who has been charged with an offence and is serving time. This is a man who has not been charged. This is a man who has not even been told why they've arrested him. It's known as closed evidence. Now, let me try and put this in perspective. You could be sitting at home now, listening to this show. A cop could knock on your door and say you're under arrest. He takes you down to the local police station, and from there you are picked up and taken probably to Exeter. That's the nearest prison around here. You contact your lawyer, you contact your family, you contact solicitors, and they all start fighting for your case. And you ask again and again and again, why am I being arrested? And they say, we can't tell you. That sends a shiver down my spine. That really, really does. And the fact that I know there's a fair chance I could be arrested because I'm speaking out, because I dare to ask the question, why? And we will keep insisting, we will keep telling you that if Mr. Corey has committed a jailable offence, and if he is found guilty of that offence, then he should serve his time. But he has not been told his offence, he has not been charged with this offence, and he certainly, as to the best of my knowledge, has not stood before a jury of his peers and been judged. In fact, the only judge I know he stood before has actually ordered his release. But this has been overruled by the Secretary of State for the North of Ireland. And there you have it.